All right. Wait just a few seconds here to let everyone get connected up. We have a lot of people joining us today, which is awesome. Everyone is looking to do their spring garden, although this weather is not necessarily cooperating with us. It keeps going back and forth. It keeps teasing us in spring and then getting cold again. Hi, everyone. I'm Vanessa with the Dallas Public Library. We do this Grow With Us series in conjunction with the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, just to help people learn more about gardening and growing things in urban agriculture. So just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You will be on mute and your video will be turned off during the presentation. However, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to put those in the chat and we'll get to those after the presentation. And there also will be, if you missed some information, there'll also be a recording of this available afterwards, so you can review it or share it, because I'm sure Ruth is going to have some really great info for us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Nedra and let her tell a little bit more about what her department does and to introduce our speaker. Thank you so much, Nedra.
Hi, Vanessa. Thank you so much. Thank you for being with us today. And we are very excited to continue our partnership with the Dallas Public Library to present this free program. My name is Nedra Richard Morgan, and I work for the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Our division is one of over 70 city departments and divisions within the city of Dallas. And our day-to-day focus is on environmental activities, processes, programs, and major plans such as the Comprehensive Environmental Climate Action Plan, also known as CCAP. Our programs range from A to Z, air quality to green living to zero waste. I have an exciting program I want to mention. Just last week, the U.S. Department of Energy, the DOE, recognized the City of Dallas for committing to reduce portfolio greenhouse gas emission by at least 50% within 10 years and to work with the Department of Energy to share successful solutions and decarbonization strategies for Dallas. As a partner in DOE's Better Climate Challenge, our department is representing the city, and we are one of more than 80 organizations across the U.S. economy stepping up to this challenge and driving real-world action towards a low-carbon future. Other global and national companies on the list with local and regional offices in our area are General Motors, Toyota, and Xerox. The OEQS director, Carlos Evans, appeared on Fox 4 Good Day last Friday talking about the challenge and our involvement. The link to the website will be dropped into the chat if you would like to learn more about it. Now I would like to turn our focus to today's speaker and the timely program entitled Spring Gardening. We are honored to have Dallas County Master Gardener Ruth Klein as our speaker. Ruth is a Dallas native, and she has always held a desire to be a gardener. However, she was not fond of the Texas heat and all the critters and the bugs. As the years passed, Ruth decided to landscape her small yard in 2006, and this action, using sound ecological principles in her landscape, ignited a passion for gardening that led her to the Master Gardener program in 2009, and to be on the City of Dallas 2010 Waterwise Landscape Tour, a program presented by the city for the past 27 years. Ruth's current interest and focus is on community vegetable gardening. She helped start a community garden at the Temple Emmanuel in Dallas, where the crop harvest is donated to a local food bank, and she currently volunteers in the vegetable section of the Raincatcher's Garden at Midway Hills Christian Church. Ruth lives with her husband and grows a small home garden, vegetable garden annually. Please help me welcome Ruth Klein to the virtual podium.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen here. Good, it worked. So thank you guys so much for coming. And spring is such a, it's such a wonderful, magical time when new growth happens and everything. And in Dallas, Texas, it's also kind of a frustrating time because really when is spring here in Dallas? And today is a perfect example. It was 80 degrees this weekend, and today, you know, I've got a heating pad and hand warmers and a sweater on, and the plants are probably equally as confused as we are. Let's see, my screen's not progressing. Oops, okay. I'm with the Dallas County Master Gardeners, and our mission is to educate the public regarding good horticultural practices. And we're all volunteers. We go through a training program, and then we do a certain number of volunteer hours, and this is part of my volunteer things, which I love doing. One of the things I love about being a part of Texas A&M AgriLife, you know, as a volunteer, is it's science-based. And my background, I have a degree in biology, and also in physical therapy. I was a physical therapist. I just retired after about almost 40 years. And I really put great, there's, you know, with like in physical therapy, with exercise or with diet or with gardening, there's so many anecdotal ideas. And I really like to learn from what's been research-based with controlled trials. And so that's the information. I mean, I'll be sharing my experience, but hopefully the information that I pass on to you all is science-based, which is what I learned from the Master Gardener program. The garden chores, this is the, you know, I'm just going to start out with some of the basics. And you may, if you go to city lectures on gardening, you'll think, oh gosh, here they go again. We're going to talk about the same thing, but it's so important. The first thing they always say is the soil, and I'm not going to. I promise you I won't spend too much time on it, because I went to a lot of garden talks when I was learning about gardening. I thought, God, do we have to talk about the soil again? And it's like going to I remember I did a Ms. Auto Mechanics class, and they spent the whole first part on tires. I thought, how boring is that? But anyways, if you've tried to put a shovel into our soil here, you know what you're dealing with. I mean, it is just hard clay, and it's hard to get into. And so the main thing, I remember they give us in our Master Gardener program, they give us a mentor. And I remember he looked me in the eyes and he said, Ruth, the answer to gardening is compost and mulch. That's all, that's the answer. And it really, there's a lot of truth to that. If you don't, you know, part of me, especially this time of year, I love to go to a garden center, and it's like you're doing a drug run or something. Like, oh, that's a pretty plant. That's a pretty plant. That's a pretty plant. But if you don't, you know, really, if you don't focus on the soil, those pretty plants, you're going to bring them home and they're not going to do very, you know, going to kind of waste your money. So the best time to start with your soil prep is in the fall, but you can still be doing it now. And this is a picture of me stealing the neighbor's leaves. I have a lot of leaves of my own, but it drives me nuts that people leave, you know, they mow up their leaves or rake up their leaves, and then they put them out in the front to go to the landfill. And there's so much nourishment in those leaves. In fact, I watched one of my neighbors, and he mowed up his leaves, put the plastic bags of leaves out on the thing, and then he went and laid down fertilizer. And I thought, man, he just sent his fertilizer to the landfill, you know, instead of doing that. So I actually, I like to go when people put their heavy trash out and, you know, nab them before the trash man comes. And it kind of embarrassed my husband, so I started doing it at night. Like the bandit. With my wheelbarrow, I'd go and collect the things. And what I do is I have a compost pile in the back. I'm 67 years old, and I'm not as into turning compost anymore. I mean, it's kind of hard on your back and stuff. But what I do is I have like a wire cage, and I just leave it back there. And what happens if you leave it long enough, it'll eventually rot. So, and then another thing I use too, like my husband likes to, I mean, he's big on the shredder. And so like yesterday, he had a whole thing of shredded, and I was like, don't put those in a plastic bag and put them in the trash. I put them into the compost pile too. And so then what happens is eventually the stuff rots. It takes longer than if you're turning it and you oxygenate it. And but what I do is I'll dig down into the bottom of it, and the bottom layer is always like it looks like soil, and it smells good, you know, kind of humusy. It smells good, and that's your compost. So what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll add it anytime I switch beds. I'll add it into the soil. So another trick I've learned that is easy is to bury your trash, and it, you know, it really doesn't have to be hard. What I do is I take a I save my, like, I don't do any animal products or dairy products, but like my carrot peels, and in the summer I eat a lot of melon and stuff like that. I chop that up, and then I just I dig a hole, and then I bury it down deep so it won't attract any critters. And then I kept forgetting where I was burying things, so I had to put up barbecue skewers so I'd know not to dig into the same hole. And then I do that in the fall, and really it's amazing. By the spring, especially if it's a fallow bed, the soil is really crumbly. So that's another thing. And then another thing you can do is what they call lasagna technique, where you just start adding layers to the soil instead of digging down. One lady I was giving a talk, she asked me about tilling the soil, and really they're discouraging that more and more because they found that it destroys the soil structure. I mean, all the little microbes and things are happy down there. If you keep digging it up, you're messing with their environment. So you know, the soil is like a living thing. It's interesting. I've gotten into gut health recently too, and our own guts the same way. We've got all kinds of, now when I'm eating, I'm always thinking, am I feeding my microbes? And when I'm feeding the soil, I kind of am thinking the same thing. Am I taking care of my microbes down there? So the general principle, I mean, you can, this into composting, but you want to mix your high carbon things, which are the browns, like the leaves and the paper shreddings. And then you want to mix it in with a smaller amount of greens, which are high nitrogen, and things like coffee grinds and the potato peels and stuff like that. So you just mix, you know, I just keep adding. Like every morning I take my coffee grounds out to the compost pile and dump them on top. So that's another thing. The other thing is important thing that, like my mentor told me, is mulch is so important. And spring is the one time when you may hold off on a whole lot of mulching, because you want to, if you're going to start planting, especially like vegetable plants and things like that, you want to give the soil a chance to warm up a little bit. And if you've got it covered, it'll stay cool. So the one time when you don't want to use mulch too is when you plant new seeds, because an advantage of mulch is what it does is it blocks off the sunlight, which blocks off the which shades the weed seeds. So if you plant lettuce seeds or something like that, you don't want to shade those. So that's the one time when you don't put down mulch. But once the plants start coming out, you want to add the mulch onto it. And there's so many advantages. It moderates the temperature. Another advantage is the mulch eventually, especially if it's an organic one, like leaves, like I'll use crushed up leaves, and just lay that as mulch, and that's a lot cheaper than going to the garden center and getting hardwood mulch. You need to chop up the leaves, because if you don't chop them up, they'll just blow away. By chopping them up, you take away the aerodynamic shape of them, so they're not as likely to fly away. Of course, on these windy March days, that may not be true. But another thing I like is hay, which you have to be careful of. There's seeds in the hay, that's which I had some, and my neighbor brought me some hay, and it had a lot of these weed seeds, and now I'm constantly doing the weeds that come up. But it looks really pretty, and it makes a really good covering for the soil. And then also, like when I saw another thing about mulching too is I saw like on the Today Show or something like that, this real estate agent, she said, if you want your garden to look like $1 million or look like a master gardener did it, just put mulch down on all the beds. And it's kind of like putting the bedspread on the bed or something. It makes everything look really pretty, especially if you do use like a hardwood mulch or something like that. Another advantage, a big deal in Dallas too, or Texas, is the way we have these rainstorms. And when the rain comes down and hits the soil real hard, it kind of forms a crust on the top. And roots need oxygen. If it's crusted on the top, you're not going to get as much oxygen. So that's another advantage I had never occurred to me about why mulch is important. And an important thing with mulch too is you want to be careful. If you put it by the stem of the plant, you want to pull it away a little bit so that if you have it right up against it, a lot of times that'll encourage bugs to eat the stems of the plants. So that's another tip about mulching. And then check the soil moisture before watering. When I was a leader of a community garden, people would say, well, the soil's dry, the soil's dry. I said, well, did you check it? And one of my favorite things to do is you can get this pretty cheap online or at a garden center. It's a soil meter. And you could, like, if they, say check it with your finger, but for me, especially if I'm checking more than one area, it's like everything starts to feel the same, so I can't really feel it. So they have some fancy ones that have numbers by them, but I like the one. This is my favorite one. It says wet and dry. I know the difference between that. So even though the surface may feel really dry, if you stick it down, a lot of times it'll actually be wet. So that's another tip. And I do that. I even use that for like my house plants and things like that. So I don't know if you can really see this picture very good, but this of all the garden chores in the spring, the one that takes up most of my time is weeding. And I like to use, it's a weeding stick. Can y'all see that? And the reason for that is you want to try to get down and get as much of the roots as you can. So you want to dig down under it and then lift it up. So I that's my favorite. I mean, I use that mostly for weeding. Another trick I learned, I like to be as much of an organic gardener as I can, but there's a saying I like that says, I'm organic, but I'm not stupid. And if you have like Bermuda grass growing in your beds, which I tend to get a lot of that, I'll use an herbicide like glyphosate. I know there's a lot of bad press about glyphosate, but there's an ancient physician, Paracelsus. He said the poison is the dose. And so what you do on this, I learned this from one of the extension agents. You take a reacher like this, and then I'm not very handy. So I went to the Home Depot and I went to the tool section and I bought everything there. I bought the reacher and I bought the sponges. And I said, could you please take the little suction cups off and screw in sponges. So you screw in the sponges, and then what you do, you wet the sponge especially, and then spray on the herbicide outlet. And then what you do is you just stand there and you just squeeze just add just the right amount on the weed or the Bermuda grass, and that way you avoid getting the grass around it poisoned. And you can do it. I mean, I love it. You can sit there with a cup of coffee and be weeding and not hurt your back or anything. So that's one of my. If you don't learn anything else from this talk, that may be one of the best tips you get today. Another thing I discovered at our community garden, again, it's probably hard to tell from the pictures. That's my foot, and I'm doing it. Is I found this at a garden center so that you don't have to bend over to weed, and it really works good. I bought it because there were some elderly people who wanted to be a part of the garden. And I thought, well, this is something they can do that won't hurt their backs. Since I'm a physical therapist, I'm always worried about people's backs. But now that I'm one of those elderly people, I'm using it. Luckily, I bought my own and just would take it to the garden. And so what you do, you put your foot down on it and you stick it, and it's got these little claws, and it grabs the weed, and then you just pull it up, and then voila, weed. And it works. Especially, I get tons of weeds. I have it's a drought resistant grass. I have a small area of grass, but it's very thin turf, and so it gets tons of weeds. So this is like, I spend a lot of time, and this works really good on this because this gets the weed without destroying the grass too. So that's another thing about that. Another, if you really want to make it easy for yourself, especially if it's a new bed, is to just take like 6 layers of newspaper and wet it down so that the newspaper doesn't fly away every time you do it. And then add a layer of mulch on top of the newspaper. And then when you want to plant a plant, you just stick a hole in the paper and then do it there. And so that really keeps down the weeds and acts as a really good mulch. And also it helps to, it tends to break down and also enrich the soil, just like the mulch does. Now, one thing I don't recommend is like, in fact, most of the things I've learned from mistakes. I put down weed fabric, and it just, when I took it away, I mean, the soil was completely compacted. So I don't know what the problem was, if it wasn't getting enough water or something like that, but it was just rock hard. So I don't like doing that. So I save you some money there by telling you not to do that. And then fertilizing, really, you don't want to do a lot of fertilizing until until the plants are metabolically active. So turf grasses, you wait till April, you wait till the grass starts growing before you fertilize it. And then the Master Gardener program always recommends a soil test. They're real big on that. And it really makes a lot of sense. It's kind of like you don't want to just take a whole lot of vitamins if you're not deficient in the vitamins, because then there's something like vitamin C, you're just peeing it out. So what you want to do is find out what you need. But I'll tell you, based on, I have done a couple of soil tests, and almost everybody in the Dallas area has low nitrogen and high phosphorus. So like on my soil test, it said, out nitrogen is the main thing. Phosphorus, don't add any more phosphorus for 5 years. So like a lot of times, if I do use fertilizer, like for my vegetables and things like that, I want something that's high nitrogen that doesn't have the potassium and potassium and phosphorus and the NPK. So what I found that works really good is fish emulsion. So that's because it's very high nitrogen. A lot of the organic fertilizers have a lot of phosphorus in them, as well as the nitrogen. And another, like you can get, like Neil Sperry has an all nitrogen fertilizer, and I'm going to fertilize one of my trees that was damaged in the freeze. And I'll probably use that. Because really once you get down, the soil and the plants don't know the difference between, if the nitrogen comes from an organic source or a regular source. It's just the only problem with non-organic fertilizers a lot of times is they'll have a lot of salt in it, and we don't want to add salt to our soil. So anyways, that's on fertilization. And then pruning, I love roses. Valentine's Day is the day to prune. Last year, I remember Valentine's Day, we had that. In fact, I was supposed to give this talk, and I lost power, and I lost internet, and I lost plumbing, and I lost everything. So it wasn't a good time to get out and prune my roses on the ice. Another thing too is a big problem in the Dallas area is oak wilt. So you don't want to prune your trees, or if you have a service to them, you don't want to do it between February 15th and June 30th are the dates. So if you hire somebody to, if you hire just like a lawn guy and they want to prune your trees, if they want to do it now, they probably don't know what they're doing. So that's, those are good dates to remember. You can put them on your cell phone camera or some cell phone. So then the other kind of pruning I'll do this time of year is like my salvias and things like that have kind of brown ugly parts on them, and I'll just sort of prune them off. So, and then in the spring, what you want to do is you want to divide the plants that bloom in the fall, and vice versa. So like if you have irises, you want to divide those in the fall. For the spring blooming, you don't want to do it while they're blooming. So these are some fall asters. Those are the prettiest fall plants. And so if you don't prune, if you don't divide like a lot of bulbs and things like irises and things like that, they'll stop blooming as much. They need to have space in order to do it. And it's really easy to divide them. You just dig it up, and then you'll see the base of it, and you just pull it apart and then plant it, give it away or plant it somewhere else. It really doesn't take a technical genius. And then actually the fall's the best time for planting like woody plants and ornamental trees and shrubs. But in early spring, you can, if you need to do it, you can go ahead and do it. But you do a lot better, because really the stressful time in the year for Dallas is the summer heat. And so that's why the reason we want to do it in the fall is so that gives the roots a chance to get established in the most stressful time of year, so that they're ready for the summer. So you can go ahead and do them, but I like I said, if it's something that can wait, I'd wait till the fall to do an expensive shrub or something like that kind of plant. Okay, and so then just by the month, we've already passed February, but you can do you can do early spring vegetables. But I'll tell you what, like spinach and lettuces and stuff like that, I haven't planted them yet because I got burned last year. I mean, I no longer trust spring in Dallas. I mean, when is the spring in Dallas? I mean, so I hold off on a lot of my planting, except for like onions, and if you're going to do potatoes, you can do those in early February. And then mow your grassy ground covers. And then if you're going to do, like, I don't do a lot of, like I said, I try to be, especially if it's a lot of stuff. I just hand weed stuff. I don't like to use many herbicides. And then March is where we are now. Prune the ground covers again, and then cut back the ornamental grasses. And I'll tell you what, take it from me. I've done that. What you want to do with ornamental grasses, like when they're out on the prairie, or you have buffalo and things like that are doing the pruning for you, but in your Dallas suburban landscape, you probably don't have buffalo working. So she just said she had goats. I mean, they'll not only prune everything, they'll eat everything. But you want to cut them back now before the new growth starts, like your loropies and your pretty ornamental. I love the ornamental grasses. But if you wait too late, what happens is the green part comes and you don't want to cut that. So you kind of got to do one strand at a time, which takes all day. So if you'll do it now, you can just get your weed whacker or just take your pruning shears and just whack it off. And then the new growth can come up from there. One of the things that I am going to do, because I had some damage to one of my trees. I had an arborist, really good arborist, come out and look at it for me and tell me that as soon as it starts, again, you want to wait till it's metabolically active. As soon as the green stuff is coming, the little leaves are coming out, you want to start fertilizing it. And they were going to charge me a lot of money to fertilize. I thought, man, I don't need to do that. All I got to do is I'm just going to sprinkle and water in some hydrant nitrogen fertilizer. I'm not going to pay somebody else to do that. That's easy to do. Another thing, daffodils. I've got some daffodils blooming today. This is so fun to see them. You think they're going to get frozen, but they do pretty good. One of the things to remember, they'll kind of look ugly, but you don't want to do is cut the green stuff out after they bloom, because daffodils are perennial here, especially if you get the right kinds, the kinds that grow up on your grandmother's farm or whatever. And if you'll leave the green on it, it'll help nourish the bulb. And so then it'll keep coming back. If you cut them off, you lose that nourishment. So one thing I've seen people do is to, if it looks too ugly and it's spraying all over your other plants, is just take one of the leaves and tie it, and then you make like a little mound so that you don't cut them off. You can cut off the little blue part, but not the green part, because you want the energy to come to the sun to help to, so it'll bloom again next year. And then again, weeding. And then this is the time I'm going to talk more about tomatoes. This is March is usually in Dallas where you plant tomatoes, but I'll talk about that in another section. And then you want to protect from late freezes. And I was thinking about, I have relatives that live in Cleveland, Ohio, and they have this long, warm growing season all summer, and we've got 2 short growing seasons. So you can start your tomatoes now. In fact, they say really it's best, because once it gets the nighttime temperature gets to 80 degrees, they stop pollinating. And so really you can, if you are going to plant now, you're going to have to be ready to protect them. And it's a heck of a job to have to, like, usually the time to put down the frost cloth is there's a blue norther coming through and you're fighting with the frost cloth. Thank God to live in Cleveland, Ohio, my relatives do, and they don't, it's like the winter comes and they're done for the season and they're inside drinking their hot cocoa, and I'm out, trying to wrestle with frost cloth. But it's fun. It's an adventure in Dallas. And then April, it can get really hot in April. Except I remember there always, a lot of times we'll have a freeze right before, or a cold day right before Easter, which happens in April. So one of the things too about pruning, if something's going to bloom in the spring, don't prune it before it blooms. Wait till after it blooms. And again, now everything should be metabolically active, so you can go ahead and fertilize your turf. And if you planted, there can be some really hot days, even in April. So if you planted something new, you've got to water it frequently because the roots are just so small. They haven't had a chance to get established. And then May is like, it's almost summertime. So again, you can prune the dried foliage from the spring bulbs. Well, I'm going to change that because it's not the foliage. You just want to get the little flower off. And you want to make sure everything is mulched because you're preparing for the summer. And it's the time when you can start planting your caladiums and things that are for hot weather. It's a prep time for the summer when it gets hard. So I'm going to talk about some of the plants. I'm going to kind of give you a tour of my landscape. And one of the things people think, I remember going to the Ladybird Wildflower Center and seeing a film with Ladybird Johnson saying, she goes, my goal is that every part of the country should look like where you are instead of everything looking like a big green park. And where we are here is we are in the Blackland Prairie. And we have a lot of beautiful blooming plants here. And so really you don't, I mean, it'd be nice to be able to do gardenias and azaleas like in East Texas, but the problem is our soil here is alkaline. And even if you can grow them here, it's a constant uphill battle. And the older I get, the lazier I get. Plus, I just want to do things they're happy here. And another thing too is the plants that are native or adapted to this area, they've got the gig down. They know that our spring is not like one season. It's like summer and winter and summer and winter. And so they're genetically programmed to deal with that. So that's why if you'll stick with plants that are easy, you'll have so much better luck. You use less water. You don't have to use so much fertilizer. It's just one of my goals when I prepare my landscape for the WaterWise tour was I just thought, what's the most ecologically sound way I can garden? I mean, I just thought I can't change the world, but I can change my little plot. And so there's a lot of butterfly plants that do really well here. You can go to Texas Discovery Garden several times a year. They'll have plant sales, and that's where I got a bunch of these. These are cowpen daisies, which it's crazy to buy a cowpen daisy because I remember looking down I had planted them in my back. I looked down the alley and everybody had cowpen daisies because they reseed real easily. And then these are Greg's mist flowers, and the butterfly, if you just plant it, the butterflies will come. And it's really, it's like butterflies are sometimes like garden art or something like that. And I remember I did a tour, a canoe tour of the Trinity River. I'd grown up in Dallas, and I thought I never really saw the Trinity River from the water. I remember it was in the fall, and I remember looking up and seeing Greg's mist flowers and cowpen daisies and thousands of butterflies. And I thought, really, they are native here, And I close to my for WaterWise gardening, I'm really almost neurotic about water saving. I mean, I just feel like it's a limited resource. So I really try to plan where I plant my plants. And out by the curb, if something has to be watered, it loses its right to be there. It's xeriscaping in that area between the sidewalk and the curb. And so I have rocks down there, and then I have this is one that's so pretty. It's called Sundrops, and it's got little bitty leaves on it, and it blooms in the spring, and doesn't have to be watered. I also had some pincushion flowers, and they needed watering, so they got moved more to the center of the. And then anything that has kind of fuzzy leaves or small leaves, they tend to use less water. Says lamb's ear, and it kind of dies down every winter, but it comes right back. And I mean, it's such a beautiful color contrast to a lot of the green in the landscape. And then cone flowers, they have all kinds of varieties of different colors, but I find that this is the original color, and it sometimes the new varieties don't do as well. So again, it's one that just blooms, and it's perennial. It keeps coming back, and doesn't take any water, and all kinds of butterflies and bees like it. And it's a beautiful one to have in your landscape. This is a yucca. I love the variegated yucca. It's so pretty, but I've had a lot of trouble with root rot with them. The regular yuccas do have no problem with, but these pretty ones, I have a few of them left. But I mean, I remember there was one bed where I did everything I could. I kept replanting. I burned it up. I put cactus soil in it. I mean, I did everything I needed to do, and it still got root rot. So I just my neighbor says if it keeps happening over and over again, maybe you're not supposed to plant this here. I thought, okay, you got a good point. So in the place where I have the variegated yucca, I just have plain yucca, which aren't as pretty, but they're still nice. And then irises, anything that would grow up naturally in in fact, there's a guy called the bulb hunter who he just went around to different like homesteads, and he always gets permission first and digs up some of the bulbs like irises and things like that. And then he propagates them and sells them. And anything that grows up around old cemeteries or grandmother's houses or something that come back, they're good to plant. So I have lots of irises. In fact, my neighbor just started sticking irises in I guess he was dividing, and he stuck them in my, so I got lots of irises out by my alley. So they're nice plants, and they and then another plant I love it. They only bloom for a day, daylilies, but they're like so pretty, and there's so many beautiful varieties. I remember I was trying when I was getting ready for the Waterwise tour, I toured Dallas, different gardens and stuff like that. And I just in June, especially, there's so many pretty daylilies. So, and the thing about bulbs is the surprise. It's kind of like you forget they're there, and then all of a sudden, surprise, there's a plant, and you haven't had to water it, you haven't had to fertilize it, it just surprises you. So that's one of the reasons I like bulbs. And then one of my home care patients gave me a pad of this spineless cactus, it's called, but don't let spineless kid you, because it's got little spines in it. So I always put rose gloves on it when I'm cutting down. What I like, I lived for 6 years in Arizona, and I didn't want my landscape to look like Arizona. But what I learned is that some of the things like the cactuses and the yuccas, they kind of provide kind of an architectural structure to the landscape. It's that in the winter, when everything else dies up, you still have something there. So this one, it's in the corner of my landscape, and right by the curb. And it grows and grows, and then I have to keep giving away parts or getting rid of it. And then in the summer, the red-tipped yuccas are just beautiful. I noticed that along Central Expressway, they tried some different plant, where surely they're not doing a lot of maintenance there. They tried it, and now they've got red-tipped yuccas up, and they do beautifully. The only thing I have to do is after they bloom, I cut back the stalk of them. And one thing to know too, when I first planted them, it took about 2 or 3 years before they started blooming. So if you plant it and you don't get a bloom at first, don't hang in there. Eventually, they say the first year it creeps, the second year first year it sleeps, second year it creeps, and the third year it leaps. So it took about 3 years to leap. And then Salvia greckii, this is the nicest plant. Again, I've got some little brown things off I need to go cut off of those. That's part of my spring pruning I need to do, but they're semi-evergreen, and they don't take any water at all. They keep coming back, and they have all kinds of pretty colors. There's a lipstick color and stuff like that. So I got a bunch of that. I really like it. And it everything goes through, nothing blooms nonstop. It goes through cycles where it'll bloom, and then it'll kind of die back, and then it blooms, and then it die back. But it's just a pretty easy plant to grow. And then I love Mexican feathergrass. The only thing about Mexican feathergrass though is that it likes to make a lot of babies, especially like in the cracks of the sidewalk and stuff like that. But I mean, it just looks like a ballet dancer. They're so pretty, and definitely you don't want to water those. Take zero water, but they may not stay where you want them in the yard. But I have kind of a free form. I mean, I'm definitely not an English. I mean, I'm more of a free form gardener. If something wants to volunteer in my yard or do it something, I kind of let it and then just try to work with it. So. Then earth-kind roses. This is one. This is so sad because earth-kind roses. The way they got the earth-kind designation is they did plots of roses, and they watered them the first year, and then after that they just left them out up in off of Coit Road at the extension place up there. And the roses that didn't take any fertilization and any water year after year, they gave them the earth kind designation. The only problem is that now we have rosette disease, and so it's not a good time to plant roses. You know, in fact, the extension agent who just left Dallas County, he said just plant them. If you're going to plant them, consider them an annual. So in other words, plant them and dig them up. I'm too cheap to do that. So you know, another substitute for them are like variegated abelias that have real pretty leaves, but you know, sadly, this one's called Belinda's Dream, and this is one that in my yard that has not gotten rosette disease, so it's still doing fine. It's right out of my front window, so I love looking at it, but it's a sad tale. A friend of mine who's an artist and a photographer went through my yard and took pictures of different blooms that throughout the yard. So like I said, we're in the Blackland Prairie, and there's lots of beautiful plants here. So find plants that are happy here and plant those so that you don't have to sweat blood. And then if all else fails, a girlfriend of mine, she takes hubcaps that, you know, people find them on the road, and then she makes yard art. And my neighbor, I said it's great, you don't have to fertilize it, you don't need full sun, you don't have to water it. But she says, Ruth, are you telling me that plastic is the answer to gardening? I said, no. But still, especially after the freeze, this time of year, especially my landscape is not looking the best, but I still have beautiful hubcaps. So anyways, you can do garden art. And then my favorite topic, let's see, I get carried away here, is vegetable gardens. So I'm gonna have to run through this because you need a lot of sun for vegetables. If you're eating the fruit of the plant, that's the main reproductive part of the plant. So that's where you need the most sun. So if you grow tomatoes, squash, cucumbers, all those stuff people like, you need full sun. If you're going to grow herbs, you can get away with less. And vegetables need consistent moisture. So again, there's really no such thing as water-wise vegetable gardening. The main thing to do is to put all your vegetables in one area where, hopefully close to the house or close to your water barrel. And then that way you can use the water more efficiently. And let's see, so just some general things you want to plant. The extension, you can Google it online. You can just say North Texas vegetable plants, and they'll tell you recommended. They've done research on recommended varieties of, and so it's a good thing if you can get those varieties. If you're planting, like if you're going to plant things with a general rule, there's small seeds like eggplant, and they're short season like tomatoes and peppers. It's best to do it for transplants. If they're large seeded like beans, squash, cucumbers, usually you're going to do them direct seed them. And like I said, I tend to wait till a little bit later in the spring because I've had bad luck with freezes. And then I'm going to skip that part. And then just some general ideas about vegetable gardening too is don't throw out all your seeds at once, because then you'll have everything come ready at once. And also if at first they don't germinate, then you keep trying. So do several seeds and then wait 5 days and do several more seeds. And it's time consuming, but it's fun. And then if you have something like, if you're growing something like Brussels sprouts, which takes all seeds and then grow things around it. And then you got to really watch the garden, especially if you're doing it organically like I am. Like this is a beautiful, this little critter here. That's the it makes a beautiful white butterfly, but it lays eggs on your lettuces and your broccolis and stuff like that, and cabbages, and makes it look like Swiss cheese. So my favorite way to control things is I don't even like using organic things. Is just to I take it off the plant and I smash it with my foot as hard as I can. And again, I like to use fish emulsion for fertilizer. And then squirrels. This is the bane of my existence. In fact, one of the master gardeners who she wrote an article of tomatoes will break your heart. Well, the main reason that they broke my heart is because I would grow them, and then one squirrel would discover them, and then they binge on them. Never, even if I planted them, so they're, even if I harvest them, so they're so green. So this was up at a community garden, and they just used they built a little frame around. Actually, I think the birds were chomping at his tomatoes, so then he just put netting around there. And then I spent a lot of money on having this built, and it's got chicken wire, and then I have a door to get in and out of it. And I have tried everything to keep squirrels out of my vegetables, and nothing works except mechanically keeping them out. And so I've had this for about 6 years, and not a squirrel has made it in. So if I don't get good tomatoes, it's not because of the squirrels. And I tried like this thing that motion detected thing. If a squirrel went by it, it would blast it with water. Well, the squirrels figure out how to get around it. And I tried hot pepper stuff. I tried fox urine, nothing worked. And then another thing, if you have trouble with squirrels digging down, a trick, or in your pots, is lay down chicken wire on the soil, and that way they can't get into it. So that's just mechanic. Just you have to cage them out, is the only way I know. Harvesting, you got to keep harvesting. It's so funny because our community garden people love planting, but nobody wanted to harvest. I mean, that's the fun part, I think. If you don't keep doing it, what the plant's trying to make more of itself. If you don't keep cutting it off, it won't keep creating new fruit. So you got to also, you want to use clean clippers and things so you don't spread diseases. This is in fact, I've got, like right here in this room now, I've got a lot. This was my laundry room before I got to my own grow lights, and I just hung the plants up close to the lights, and it was a heck of a job trying to get them watered, but I got a good crop of tomato plants. And then I hung up some shelves from by the fluorescent. My husband said, "You're going to put fluorescent lights in the dining room?" I said, "Sure, I'm going to do it." So I had them hanging from the ceiling every one year. I'm not quite as enthusiastic now, but that was when I was doing the Temple Emmanuel Community Garden. And then, yeah, like I said, I've gotten a lot more modest now. I just like I'll hang them there and do them indoors. And then you can do a kind of fun thing to do. I don't really end up getting a good harvest is potatoes in a grow bag, or you can go to the dollar store, and what you do is you put you plant them in January. You put the potatoes in, and then when they start growing, you keep adding soil and mulch to it, and then all you got to do is just dump it over, and you don't have to dig up your potatoes. It's probably something to do fun with kids, but if you really want a crop of potatoes, I wouldn't recommend it. And then onion slips you can do in January, and then your broccolis and things like that you could probably plant now. I probably would get. I think it's probably a little late to direct seed them, but you can go to North Texas Planting Guide and find out when to plant things. Very important because of our short growing season. And winter greens, I mean, who likes to, I don't care for mustard green. I love most vegetables, but mustard greens, but they're beautiful. They're pretty mixed in with the flowers and things like that. And then you got something to eat. If you don't have a lot of space, this is the only picture that's not from my own. I got permission for it. Somebody just planted lettuce. They just poked holes in the bottom of the potting soil mix and sprinkled the seeds on top. Actually, lettuce seeds need light to germinate, so you don't even put them down very low. And then radishes are supposed to be easy to get. In fact, our vegetable specialist program, which I did, the guy says, we tell people, if you can't grow radishes, we can't help you. But I had trouble growing radishes, and the main thing is when they first come out, you have to thin them out, and by thinning them out, you cut off the weaker ones. And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants a new plant that's just come from the soil. It's just painful to just cut it back. But unless you do that, you're going to end up just with a little, the bottom part and no root. And the distance apart, the seed package will tell you how far apart to thin them out. But I just visualize a radish and allow enough space for the radish to grow. And then, again, tomatoes, you probably need a whole class on tomatoes, but they're very difficult to grow in Dallas. And some people have luck. I don't have very good luck in containers. Sometimes I've had good luck. That's a grow box where you water it beneath, and the water comes up So, I mean, sometimes I've had luck with them, but most of the times I do better if I grow them in the soil. You can do green beans, you can do cucumbers, squashes. Squashes, it's best to try to trellis them up. And if they're big squashes, the stem will usually get wide enough. Another thing we did is use braziers to hold up the big fat squashes. But I remember our vegetable specialist said, he says, why do you want to grow? He says, the reason you want to grow squashes up is because the bugs are afraid of heights. And we went, oh, come on. He says, no, really, the bugs are afraid of heights because actually their main predator are birds. And if you go them up high, the bugs are less likely to go where the birds can find them. So I thought that was interesting. And then later in the season, you can do eggplants and peppers. Peppers do pretty good. A lot of times they'll stay kind of, they'll go real slow. And then in late summer, they'll kind of perk up. And the less you water peppers, actually, this is interesting. The vegetables that have kind of a bitter taste or a hot taste, they have, they're actually good for your health because they produce what are called phytochemicals. And the phytochemicals are what are made so that predators don't eat them, including us. But those same phytochemicals that keep the predators away are also, they kind of add challenges to our own cells, our body cells. And that's why they're good for preventing cancer and things like that. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. Sweet potatoes are fun. I mean, I actually did them, I did them on, you can get seed potatoes, or I just got organic potatoes, and then they grow little green things out the side of them. You just tear them off and then you stick them in and plant them, and then they grow lots and lots of, they'll make a good ground cover. And actually Asian people will eat the tender, stir fry with the tender ends of them. And so you get kind of a they take all season. It's not until the fall you harvest them, but then you can, in the meantime, you can be getting the leaves. And then herbs are easy to grow. That's one of my favorite things. I've got them right outside my kitchen door, and I love, like I need parsley or cilantro this winter. Gosh, it reseeded, and I've been doing taco soups and chilies with cilantro. There's winter vegetables, and then there's summer vegetables, and there's Mediterranean herbs. I mean, and so you don't want to mix them together again, because the Mediterranean herbs don't need a lot of water, whereas the like basil and things like that need a lot of water. So you have to be careful. Sometimes, like if you go to a garden center or something, they'll have a herb thing, and they'll have them all mixed in together, and they're not according to water needs. So that's another thing to be careful about. And then you can mix in, Swiss chard looks really pretty. I like to border my pansies in the winter with Swiss chard. And Swiss chard, a lot of times it'll last several seasons. It's from the beet family, so it gets a really thick root. And then I don't do good with container gardening, but this is one that was fun to do, is a wheelbarrow garden. And I found at a estate sale an old wheelbarrow and drilled holes in the bottom of it and stuck the potting soil inside. And then I got a pretty good farm going there. I mean, I've got cucumbers coming down and herbs and all kinds of greens and things like that. And the great thing about it too is if you have a late freeze, you just wheel it back into the garage. So, and a friend of mine said, Ruth, we could just wheel it into the dinner table and people can cut their own salad off of it. So I thought that it's kind of a fun thing to do. And also if you have shade, you just wheel it over to where the sun is. That's another advantage of that, having a mobile one. So I love this. Skip Richter, he's a Harris County extension, and he's fun guy. He says, one of the most affirming and enjoyable things about gardening is the fact that we keep getting another chance to get it right. If the planting fails, just pull it up and replant. Each season is a new chance to learn, to experiment, and to gain expertise. There are a few things in life where you can fail so miserably and just start over with a clean slate. I love that. And that's what I love about gardening. It's kind of a metaphor for life. You just keep at it, and eventually things pop up. So this is it's a lot of trouble. It's a lot easier just to go to the grocery store and buy the vegetables, but then you just, especially growing from your own seed, seeing the miracle of growth. And then, that's a steal life from my own garden. That's the Belinda's Dream Rose, and those are I do occasionally get tomatoes and squashes from my garden. And so it's just so much fun. So I don't grow the things that I don't grow. I'm not good with turf because I don't really like turf because it uses too much water. I'm not good with, I don't have enough space for fruit trees and stuff. Last time I gave a talk, people were asking me all these questions. But the best kept secret is to go to the Dallas County Master Gardener. You can, if you have a question or you have a problem, you can email them and you can send them a picture. Like if you've got red spots on your leaves or something like that, and then they have people there who will research the answers for you and get back with you about it. So that's really your tax. It's free of charge. Your tax. It's not somebody's paying for it. But it's volunteers doing it. And then also they have a brand new, when I first started the Master Gardener program in 2009, they didn't have Instagram and Facebook. Now we've got a Facebook page, and they have a wonderful new website, DallasCountyMasters.org and mastergardeners.org. And that also will, they have a link on there to, if you have a question or a problem, yeah. So really, I encourage you all to make use of that. And another thing that's coming up is it's a fundraiser for the Master Gardeners, is the Spring Garden Tour. It's April 30th and May 1st. So from 10 to 4 on Saturday and 1 to 5. And it's a small fee for it. And you go to, and I think they're all north of LBJ now, but that's another fun thing to do. So I don't know. Listen, did I use up all my time? Gosh, I get to talk. Yeah, I probably did. Sorry. There's not much time for questions. So like I said, if you have questions, though, go to DallasCountyMasterGardeners.org. So that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Ruth. We were able to answer a few of the questions in the chat. There was a question about where did you get your upright weeder? That was a really cool thing.
I think I probably got it on Amazon. Yeah, I think I actually, just ordered it online.
And there are some questions about pecan trees and crepe myrtle scale, but it sounds like probably the best thing is for them to email those questions to the Master Gardener help email there and get a good answer for that.
Like I said, yeah, I since I don't have I grew up with a pecan tree, but my parents didn't do anything about it, so I don't know. I'm not an extension agent. I'm just a volunteer, but so I really just share what I've learned from my own experience and what I've researched. So sorry, but like I said, the answer is on DallasCountyMasterGardeners.org.
I like this tip. I haven't heard this before, but someone puts their cat fur around their plants to help keep squirrels away. So that's interesting.
They put what?
Cat fur. Their fur from their cats.
Well, okay. I don't think it would work on my squirrels.
And then there was a question about a good veggie for a patio garden, and I would say anything that doesn't have deep roots, like lettuce would probably be good. I've grown tomatoes and peppers pretty well on my patio, and the herbs you mentioned would be a really good thing to grow on your patio too.
And they make, you can look at seeds. You can go to seed catalogs, and they make they breed certain plants that say patio tomatoes. So that would be a good one to do.
And let me see if there's any other quick questions here. So I thought this was interesting about how big your containers should be when you're growing seedlings. They felt like their seedlings died last year because the containers they used were too small.
Well, you know what I got, you're supposed to, you can get the containers that you buy, like if you buy a flat of pansies. I used to use those, but let me grab one right here. Like right now, I just went and got some paper. I mean, you start them out in little tiny things, and can you see that? No, you can't really see it. I just went and got like Dixie cups and then put holes in the bottom, and that way I don't have to bleach them and clean them out. And then they're made out, the Dixie cups are made out of paper, so I just tear off the paper and then put it in the ground. So that's what I've started doing, mostly just because I'm lazy. I don't want to. Every time you plant in the same containers, you're supposed to put a bleach solution, and this way I know they're clean. So, and then I bought like an ice pick, and that's what I put the holes in the bottom of it. Yeah, yeah.
That's a really great idea. I hadn't thought about that before. But yes, sometimes I would say with seedlings, probably I found the most important thing is your amount of light you use when you're growing them, like you showed your grow lights. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, that if you just have it in a window, it may not get enough sun, like it may not get enough direct light. So I find like unless you have a really sunny window, you probably need to use some kind of grow light.
Or actually just a fluorescent light is fine. I mean, just a shop light is what I've rigged up one using a PVC pipe, and I probably should have taken a picture of that. But it's the main thing is you put it. A lot of people, you have to put it like just like an inch or two beneath the light. It has to be right up against it for that kind of light. And then what I'm doing right now, I'm going through a process called hardening off. So on a, like the other day, it was a beautiful day and it was kind of cloudy. So I take them out and let them kind of get used to being in the wind and a little bit of sun. And you gradually, it's a hassle to do this, but like I'm retired now, so I have time to do it. And so you gradually increase the amount of time they're out before you plant them. So you have to, you know, when they've been indoors under this grow light and, you know, and they're in the heat and the, you know, they don't have any stress, you have to kind of get them used to being outdoors. So.
Yes. And there was a question about what to start inside and what to direct sow, and I think you covered that. And I also put a chart from Texas A&M AgriLife that has like, it's like when the there's no, like you were saying, there's no exact dates, right? Because our weather is crazy, but it has some general guidelines. And also it says whether to grow from transplants or grow from seed in that chart too. I recommend everyone take a look at that.
Yeah, it's based on their research. They actually, that's what I like. So I really follow those planting guides pretty closely. I mean, I don't plant outside the, like if you try to plant plant a tomato in late April or early May, you're not gonna get any tomatoes. So you have to be really careful with it.
And this is something someone asked that I've tried before to some success, is planting radishes with your squash. And I think it's supposed to be like a companion planting that helps keep squash bugs off. And like I said, I had limited success to that because eventually the squash bugs will still find your squashes if they really want to. So
yeah, actually they've done research on it, and the research doesn't back that up. I mean, I think I think I might even had it on the PowerPoint and I just ignored it because the latest, you know, the only thing that they have found that does work is to plant they call catch plants. And so you do another bed that just has plants that are real attractive to the bugs, and sometimes they'll go to there instead of to your but I don't think the research backs it up anymore. A lot of the mixing, the companion planting.
Yeah. Although I was telling Ruth before the program started that I did have success using some volunteer sunflowers as a kind of a lure crop for the squirrel.
Yeah. That's the idea of use them as a lure or catch. Yeah. It's kind of divert their attention. But it's, you know, it's hard to grow vegetables in Dallas, but when it works, it's so satisfying. I mean, it's worth the trouble.
Yes, definitely. Thank you so much, Ruth, for all your time and expertise. There's a lot of thank yous in the chat. And a comment that you were very informative and funny. So yes, I have to agree with that. Very entertaining.
Well, thank you. I love doing it. It's fun.
So again, I encourage everyone to I put in the chat the Master Gardener's website and email that Ruth shared with us. So be sure to check that out. We are going to have a special guest next week too on our next Grow With Us, and it's going to be Garrett Quayle, and she's actually author of a book called Botanical Shakespeare, which is all about plants and Shakespeare. And so she's going to be talking about some new research she's done into Queen Elizabeth and her effect on like the gardening boom during Shakespeare's time. So that will be really interesting. If you're interested in the overlap of history and plants, if you're a plant nerd like me, that would be something definitely to check out. She's also very entertaining, much like Ruth. So it'll be another great speaker. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Use today, since it's kind of cold to be out in your garden, use today, like Ruth was saying, about planting your garden, right? So it's all about looking at some of those charts, see what you can plant now, and working on that soil maybe too.
Yeah, you can always do that.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And be sure to join us next week for our next program.
Thank you.